All right, we're gonna watch this video by Josh Strife Hayes. Are MMOs growing again?
In the past few months, the MMORPG genre has experienced somewhat of a renaissance. The status quo has been shaken up and the dominance of the old guard is being challenged. New studios are bringing out new games, new players are flooding in and discovering the joys of the MMO, while old players are questioning long-held beliefs about game design. Is the MMO about to have a rebirth within the gaming landscape?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. The MMORPG is a
There's nothing in that mug.
fantastic genre with millions of players around the world. Players enjoy the mechanics of the MMO, creating a character, leveling, dungeons, raiding, leveling up your skills, and having your own adventure online. And yet many people have been saying, since around 2016, the genre has been going downhill. Is that about to change? Was it?
I definitely have been saying that. I've been saying that notably the Western MMO scene, Western being Western influence MMOs like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV and ESO and Guild Wars 2. Other than those four, we really haven't seen a big resurgence in the Western MMO market. We did see a big phase of Korean MMOs being ported to the West, and we're actually still seeing that with Elion. We saw it with Terra, we saw it with Black Desert Online, we saw it with, oh gosh, I can't remember the other one. But there was like 3 or 4 really big ones, ArcAge, that were ported from Korea over to the US, and that was booming over here for a while. So he's probably going to talk about that. I got a little bit ahead of myself. Sorry.
Is it true at all? Let's have a look at the state of the genre as it is right now and see if we're going through somewhat of an MMO renaissance.
Before we begin, if you want to support the channel for free, you can like the video or sub for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell for all the future notifications, and a special thank you to all those who support via Patreon or Twitch.
Oh, that is an impressive Patreon. Wow, good job, man. You know it's good when you can't read any of the names. Holy moly.
More on how you can do this at the end. For now, let's begin. Back in February 2021, MMORPG YouTuber The Lazy Peon put out the excellent video The Absolute State of the MMORPG Genre. In the video, he laments the financial support that's been shown to other genres such as Battle Royales and first-person shooters, while the MMO has sadly been left behind. But why is this? Well, back in 1997, the world was introduced to Ultima Online. Then 2 years later, in 1999, EverQuest arrived, and thus began one of the greatest gaming rivalries. The MMORPG had 2 franchise titans, and EverQuest and Ultima actually remained surprisingly close to each other in popularity for many years. Then along came Acheron's Call.
That was my first right there, chat. Acheron's Call. Ah, the memories. That was my first MMO.
To challenge them both, and while never taking the crown, it did extremely well. Then more games arrived, and the MMORPG genre had a healthy, real-world gaming meta. No one game dominated, no one style was vastly superior. The game selection was smaller than today, but the player base was stable between all of them. Then came
Oh, look at that, Final Fantasy 11. Nah, nah.
in the MMORPG boom. World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Guild Wars, Anarchy Online, Ragnarok Online, Final Fantasy 11, Eve, Toontown.
If he wouldn't have said Final Fantasy 11, I would have stopped this video right now and I would have rebelled somehow.
Online, Lineage 2, Second Life, City of Heroes. The MMORPG gold rush had begun.
Companies knew there was money to be made in the MMORPG landscape, but as of yet, the specific design structure wasn't known. Fantasy or sci-fi? Action combat or tab target combat? Player versus player or player versus environment? The meta of the MMORPG design hadn't yet been solved, and this meant there was lovely creative chaos. When there is no structure for how to design something for the biggest financial gain, then creative people just throw multiple ideas out and see what works.
I think I can kind of see where this is going, because now that's not happening as much because World of Warcraft set a formula that everybody had to follow, otherwise their game would fail.
To take the risk when there's no blueprint to copy, and it's this risk that leads to fantastic, interesting, creative situations. We don't know what we're going to get. Something might work.
I think the one in recent memory is Guild Wars 2. And I always respect Guild Wars 2 for the chance the risk they took with the design of Guild Wars 2, and I was rooting for it. I really wanted it to succeed, but ultimately, I think it didn't do as well as I hoped. The fact that they were getting rid of the Trinity, in so many words, and that it was a very much exploration based MMO, which is so good. And that I think they did a lot of pioneering and just like level scaling and playing with your friends no matter what level they were, right? They did a lot of good things in that arena. They didn't invent it, but they did a lot of good things. And I think future MMOs are going to benefit from that. And we're even seeing a lot of these exploration hub based things, even in games like Genshin Impact and gosh, I can't remember the other ARPG that's doing a very similar thing. I think it's Godfall. They're doing a lot of similar things that Guild Wars do, where you just explore and just loot. And Guild Wars 2 really, really took that to heart, and I respect them. I think that's the only recent MMO I can think of that really, really took a chance on their design.
It's the same as when an MMORPG releases a new patch or a new dungeon or a new update. Players don't know what works. We don't know what the best item to use is. We don't know what the best setup is. And it's this lovely chaos, this beauty of the unknown that allows us to be so creative.
That's why I hate WoW PTR. I really do, because it just eliminates all of that. Well, not all of it, a majority of it. It just removes all the mystery. The PTR comes out, everybody figures out where everything is. You get guides on day one. That's like, what happened to the discovery? I can't stand WoW PTR for that.
It's taking the risks that gives us the creative rewards. Everyone had been thrown into chaos. Companies didn't know what to design, and the meta of the MMO design hadn't yet been solved. This gave us so many different games.
The early to mid era of the MMORPG was similar to the early to mid era of the mobile phone. Companies were throwing some crazy designs at the wall and seeing what worked. What the
I was there for this, Chad. I was there for this. I was reviewing this stuff on YouTube as well. Oh gosh, I was there. Woo! I remember my Sony Ericsson T68i. It looked like a James Bond phone. And it was about this big. It was so tiny, and I'd be like talking like this, and people be calling me Zoolander and like, what is this, a phone for ants? It was really, 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 really tiny. Actually, I don't even think Zoolander was out at the time. I could be making this whole thing up.
Actually respond well to. If you were a kid in the late 90s, mid 2000s like I was, you'll probably remember everyone having a different mobile phone with a different operating system and a different charging cable. It was a
Well, it was Nokia, it was BlackBerry, and what was the other big brand? Motorola. Those were the three I think that dominated. For the most part, that's what you saw. And then the Sidekick came out. I remember the Sidekick dropped from T-Mobile. I just saw that on the screen too, and that reminded me of the Sidekick drop. But it was really Motorola, Nokia, and BlackBerry that I remember distinctly. And Nokia was dominating. Holy moly. Was Nokia just on top of their game back then.
Wild time for design. And these crazy wild situations are absolute breeding grounds for creativity. When no one knows what will work, or when you've got multiple styles all working equally well, people are driven to find unique solutions, ideas, and styles. It's a designer's paradise when the correct choice financially isn't known. And then the risks they take start to pay off. But one paid off more than the others. World of Warcraft. Slowly, one MMO emerged as the king and began to make all the money. Now, from a design standpoint, the emergence of a single dominating system means one thing. The clones are coming. When the audience is young and the design space is fresh,
Oh my goodness. This annoyed me as an MMORPG lover. This saddened me so much that everybody was trying to make a WoW killer by remaking WoW, and I was like, that's not how you compete with WoW. You don't make another WoW. People, if they want WoW, they'll go back to WoW. And I think the problem was a lot of these developers listened to the players because the players would knee-jerk react and say, oh, you should do this like WoW. WoW does this well. Oh, you should do this like WoW. WoW does this well. And a good developer would be like, why don't you shut up and go back to WoW, sir?
Risk is the best business strategy because the chance of success is equal roughly everywhere, but when the audience is known, risk becomes a terrible tactic. If you want to make guaranteed money, you'll just copy what works. With Warcraft dominating and EverQuest creeping ahead of Ultima, the standard was being set. If you were a company making an MMO, you likely wanted a third-person fantasy game with classes, tab target combat, and grindy gameplay with endgame dungeons and raids as your focus. It was proven to work. The formula had been found.
And that formula destroyed the social aspect of MMORPGs. If you didn't have a raid, what we call static, I understand that WoW people don't know what the static is. It's a raid party, basically. It's a static group. The word static means that it doesn't move. So you would raid with the same people every week. If we didn't have that in today's MMOs, there would be zero social aspect in MMORPGs in a lot of different games. This formula that he's talking about, that WoW came up with, eroded the entire idea of talking to strangers and getting to know them in a video game. It was like in today's MMORPG with WoW, you get in Dungeon Finder and you find a pub group, and then you never see them again. And the whole thing, if you talk to anybody who loves MMOs and got addicted to MMOs, a big part of that was the social aspect. You talked to individuals, you made friends, or you had a really cool moment with this person, in tandem with the content. The content is going to be the content, but it was the mix of the people and the content that made MMORPG so special. That's why I preferred Final Fantasy XI at the time, because you could not do anything unless you got a group. And in order to get a group, you had to ask, you had to shout, like, hey, I am a bard looking for group. I have the MP regen spell, Mage's Ballad, invite me. I get like 20, everybody would want me in their party, right? Because, you wanted that MP regen. And then you grind with the party for 12 hours. And you get to know the people. You add them to your friends list. You maybe even join their link show. And then you know what? What would happen? The next day, they'd be like, hey, man, you got a group? Let's go do this again. That person would, you know what? I'm rambling. But it really irked me that MMOs are the way they are now, because they're nowhere near what they used to be. It was all about the social aspect of the game. Now it's all about just getting in and getting what you need done and getting out.
One of the worst things that can happen to a creative space is the design within it becoming solved. Once you know the best set of steps to take to achieve a certain goal, you'd be a fool not to take them. In Warhammer 40k, if a certain army becomes all-powerful and all-dominant, you'd be an idiot not to play the army. In Magic the Gathering, if one deck became unbeatable, you'd want to play the deck. In any MMORPG...
Oh, that's so bad these days. The meta. Like, even in shooters, man. It's like the top tier guns. If you're not using the top tier gun, people would come to your stream or video and they'd be like, why aren't you using the ump? Remember the ump in like Modern Warfare 2? Why aren't you using the ump? Or, why aren't you using the noob tube? Why aren't you using this? It's the best gun in the game. It's broken. Why aren't you using it? Oh, man.
Once the meta is known, how to play your class, you play your class in that way. It takes away the freedom and the creativity, and designing a game is no different. Once companies knew how to build an MMORPG for the maximum return on investment, everyone did that. If your goal is victory or profit, you'd be a fool not to follow the meta.
And that's where free-to-play came in. Really, that is where what he just said applied to free-to-play. Because companies saw that for a minimum amount of development time, you just made skins. All you did was make skins, and you reskin mounts and you reskin armor, and you would make tons more than a subscription fee. And in a way, that helped kill the MMORPG genre to where it is now. It really did, because how many? I mean, if you can count on one hand how many subscription-based MMOs there are now, right? True subscription-based MMOs: Final Fantasy 14. WoW. That's it. Like ESO and Guild Wars 2 are like a hybrid, like ESO, you pay for this premium thing to get like things that you should have, like, the crafting storage and stuff like that. With their ESO premium or ESO plus, whatever it's called. But in essence, it's a buy to play game. So is Guild Wars 2. You know, to me, those are the top 4 MMOs right now. I don't know about RuneScape. Y'all got to educate me on RuneScape. But it's like, those are the 2 main subscription-based MMOs out right now, right? And to me, that's the better model. The subscription-based model is the better model. I don't like these models where they nickel and dime you with all these things that you should earn in game, right? But you know, WoW and Final Fantasy 14 are you know, they're attaching a cash shop on top of the subscription model, which is a big controversy in itself. And honestly, I was never a fan of that. Never a fan of any cash shop, even if it's just cosmetic. I know some people are fine with things being just cosmetic. I am not a fan of any cash shop on top of a subscription model. I'm not a fan of it. I'll buy mounts on there and stuff, but I don't like it. I really don't like it. I'm not upset enough about it to where I'll boycott it and, you know, go scream in the streets about it. But I just don't like it. I prefer it not to be there. Anything. Nothing. I want everything to be earned in the game, and I want you to provide that via that subscription fee. So yeah, if they got to raise the box price of games to make that happen, I'll actually be down for it, because I don't like cash shops at all.
This kills design. I'm not blaming World of Warcraft specifically for homogenizing the genre.
I am.
If it hadn't been that one, another game would have. It just happened to be the game that found the specific combination of franchise recognition and design style that appealed to a lot of people. And
see, I think the reason why I don't think it would have been somebody else, because Blizzard was exceptional at this. This was the best thing that Blizzard could do. They would take an established game or genre and they would repolish it and remake it into something better. Nobody else could do that like Blizzard at the time. They were the best at it. Hands down. Nobody came close to them. And when they stepped in your genre, you got scared, because they were going to take over, man. They were going to do it in a way that everybody loved, and that was going to be the norm. ARPGs, MMORPGs, look at Hearthstone, you know, look at StarCraft. They just came in and destroyed the real-time strategy genre. You know, Command & Conquer was like top dog, and then all of a sudden, here comes StarCraft. Blew that up. They're the best at it. I don't think anybody but Blizzard could have done it.
And now designers knew that taking risks wasn't worth it. Risking success in a chaotic landscape with everyone else also risking is potentially lucrative. Risking when you've already got a guaranteed method of success is not appealing to most companies. Over the next few years, we did indeed get some new MMOs, but most came and then went. WildStar, The Secret World, The Matrix Online, Shadowbane, Asheron's Call 2, Star Wars Galaxies, The Lord of the Rings Online. Some of these games,
I'm saying because I played all of these,
found minor levels of success, most of them shut down. The MMORPG was an extremely expensive genre to make, and since the majority of the player base was focused on a single game,
I remember Vanguard, dude. Oh, what a great crafting system.
It had a relatively low chance of giving a decent return on investment. You were unlikely to steal another game's players. The major MMORPGs that did manage to rise in power were all offering something that Warcraft didn't. RuneScape didn't require a download, Guild Wars 2 was a buy once play forever game, or they were supported by huge franchises. The Elder Scrolls Online had Skyrim, Final Fantasy 14 had Final Fantasy, and the genre settled into this stable position for a while. The 5 major MMORPGs, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, The Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape were the titans of the genre, with several smaller...
Is that all the ones I named? I think it is. I even said RuneScape. I don't know about it, but... RuneScape
were the type Final Fantasy 14 for a while. The 5 major MMORPGs, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy 14, The Elder Scrolls Online, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape were the...
Those are the same ones I named, yep. And only 2 of those are pay-to-play.
Titans of the genre, with several smaller but still successful games floating around the edge. Star Wars The Old Republic, Neverwinter, Dungeons & Dragons Online, Lord of the Rings Online, Terra, and others sitting off to the sidelines. The gold rush, at least in the MMORPG design space, was finished, and plucky young designers moved on to different, less risky genres. If you're a game
like Battle Royale, where all you had to do was make skins.
Development company, at this point in time, you don't want to make an MMORPG. They're incredibly expensive, have a really long development time, and a very, very low chance of actually making any profit. Back when the gold rush was happening and people didn't know what would make money, it was worth it. But the research had been done, the R&D was finished, and people had discovered that a successful MMORPG took a hell of a lot of money to make. That gold rush was now happening in other games, battle royales. The mobile gaming market was making absolute strides and billions of dollars.
hundreds of billions of dollars. Go look it up. Like if you don't know about this, go and look up how much money people like Clash Royale and these other big mobile gaming companies, how much money they make. It will literally blow your mind how much money these guys make per month. They make per month what a lot of these game companies take 3 years to make. I'm not kidding you. Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars.
The MMORPG genre had been solved design-wise, and that gold rush was over. Right up until it started again.
By gold rush, I mean the moment companies realise there's an excessive amount of money to be made, and over the last 6 months in the MMO world, we've seen some major movements from big companies, and some interesting additions from smaller
I can't think of any except Riot.
ones. If a game is solved, there's no point making any different moves, like
I'm hoping he educates me. I can't think of any other big companies that are doing an MMO besides, Amazon. I forgot, New World.
tic-tac-toe. Once the winning combination is known, just copy it. And this is true right up until the winning combination stops winning. World of Warcraft is falling. Final Fantasy XIV is raising. And this switch in power is a symptom of a major new era in the MMO world. Not every single MMO player wants to play a single game forever. They want to play them until they stop having fun and then move on to another one.
That's me. I've been that way forever.
Variety becomes the spice of life. Players want new experiences, and for the last few years this has meant players have cycled between the top 5 MMOs, occasionally trying the smaller ones, but now we seem to be reaching a player boredom boiling point. Every MMO
Oh, I love that. A player boredom boiling point. I love that. I'm going to take that.
player has tried all the top games. Most of them have tried the smaller games, and the companies are realizing the player base wants something new.
Wait, why are we showing Warframe in the MMO genre? No, don't do this. Don't do this. Great video so far. Don't do
And
this.
are actually serious about playing a new game. Amazon are moving in with New World to capture the casual
Right.
PvP crowd. Mortal Online 2 wants the hardcore PvP
Mortal Online 2. Huh. Today I learned.
players. RuneScape Mobile wants the mobile market. Ashes of Creation is aiming to recreate that classic RPG feel. Bless Online has just released. League of Legends is making an MMO. Star
There's Riot.
Citizen is probably releasing another pre-release ship to make more money. It may one day exist, it may not. Who knows?
Well,
The early days of the MMORPG boom were brought about because companies realised this new genre, the MMO, had an untapped player base and there was a lot of money to be made. Companies took risks, several companies failed, a few succeeded, and the early days were won by EverQuest, Ultima Online, Asheron's Call, World of Warcraft, RuneScape, Guild Wars. These games rose to the surface.
Final Fantasy 11. Don't make me unsubscribe.
Some of them kept going for years and
I'm not
years
subscribed.
after. The risk was just too big to take now. If you're a new company, making an MMO would likely bankrupt you. So the MMO sat back. Games companies enjoyed making vast amounts of profits, and players slowly became bored. The genre stagnated because it was too risky for any new company to enter.
Oh man, this is great because this sounds like an exact conversation I had with my Discord and my community, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I was telling them, some people didn't like it, but I was telling them how WoW did this. And like I said earlier, I will blame World of Warcraft because their formula was too good and nobody could take risks. Anybody who took a risk, people wouldn't play it and it would die. And it, like he said in this video, it takes a lot of money to make an MMO. That's why I really respect what Crowfall is doing because they're not really relying on the player count to sustain their game, right? They know they're a niche game. They're licensing their engine so that they can make money that way. And also they're catering to their niche. So they're not going to try to be mainstream. They know they're going to be cater to the semi-hardcore PvP market. And the fact that they're rehashing, or not rehashing, but restarting their campaigns every couple of months, you get that fresh start feel very, very often. And it's going to be easy to join an MMO as a new player like that because, you know, that campaign is going to be new. You can jump right in, join a guild, and get into some Castle Siege. So I really respect what Crowfall is doing. Some people consider Crowfall to be a failure. If you're making enough money to pay your employees and to keep your servers up and you're content with that and your growth is sustainable, even if you probably have a plan that doesn't even need to necessarily grow or boom. That's a success in its own right. You can be a niche MMO and stick around. So we're going to be watching Crowfall carefully.
This, ironically, made it worth entering, because players wanted a new game. They hadn't had a new good game, in a hell of a long time. And suddenly, the money was there to be made again. The player base were crying out for a new game, and the risk suddenly became worth the reward.
Who's taking risks, though?
A healthy, unsolved meta is vital to the long-term success of anything competitive or creative. EverQuest and Ultimate were so close for so many years, and this meant they both focused on being the best versions of themselves because something about them was appealing. They didn't need to follow a known formula and become gentrified. Competition leads to innovation, invention, and creation. Once Warcraft began to dominate, design became do what works and copy that, not do what we're good at or create something new. Now, with Warcraft failing, suddenly the top 5 MMOs are actually leveling out again, and this is forcing them to all focus on what they are specifically good at, not just copying a known formula, because the formula isn't working as well as it used to. We have returned to the point where risk is worth it. Renaissance.
I don't know about that, though. Like, let's get the Thor meme here. Is it, though? You know, is it though? Is the risk back? I don't know.
Means rebirth, revitalization, or a renewed interest in something.
Because let's look at Ashes of Creation. Ashes of Creation is a conglomeration of Ultima, Shadowbane, EverQuest, and a little sprinkle of WoW. Or maybe Dark Age of Camelot, right? Castle Siege stuff, which we've seen kind of rehashed and rebirth in a lot of different ways in like ESO and Guild Wars, World v World. We've seen that before. So I don't see a lot of risk there. I think Ashes of Creation is just trying to combine a lot of different things that nobody's combined before. And New World is not really taking a lot of risks. They really cut back on what they were trying to do. They've really instanced all their PvP. So it's not really a PvP based MMO right now. It's more of a, gathering, exploring MMO, much like Guild Wars is, but with no PvP at all. I mean, I'm kind of disappointed in the lack of PvP in New World. So, and Crowfall is Shadowbane with campaigns, resettable campaigns. I don't see a lot of risk taking yet.
Can be a slow burn change or a dramatic shift. In most cases, it's a combination of both. In the MMORPG genre, it's the slow creeping boredom caused by multiple years of industry dominance and solved gameplay design causing the player base to wish for something new, combined with a sudden shift in the player base away from Warcraft and toward other games such as Final Fantasy, which has made companies realize the genre is being shaken up. The gold rush is here again. The risks are worth it. World of Warcraft.
I do agree that I feel like there is a gold rush happening, but I haven't seen anyone take any meaningful risks. And I'm not saying that I disagree with Josh here. I am disagreeing with him on the magnitude of risks. I think the risks that they're taking are minor. I think he's making them sound like they're major. Just want to point that out.
Solved MMO design for many years. As far as player counts go, clones were made to emulate the success, and a lucky few managed to survive. The genre became too much of a risk to enter. Battle Royale games made more money for less risk. Mobile gaming was far more profitable. But now the player base is bored. The power has shifted, and the companies have realized while mobile gaming is still the best choice financially, the MMORPG genre isn't completely done.
I wouldn't say the player base as a whole is bored. I think WoW players are bored. Because you got the same... I've been learning a lot about WoW lately. You guys been getting the same nonsense for 3-4 expansions. And it's rinse and repeat ad nauseum. And even Final Fantasy 14 is kind of approaching that samey type of thing, right? The story is, I think, where Final Fantasy shines the most in terms of originality each expansion. But when you talk about all the mechanics and all the things that they're adding and just MMORPG things, they're good, but they're kind of samey. Guild Wars 2, I think, hit that point a long time ago. I don't think Guild Wars 2 is doing anything remotely interesting since the last time I played it, really. In terms of like new exciting things. And when you got a genre as old as this, right, it becomes more difficult to impress an already jaded gamer base, because we have so much choice in every genre. We've got billions of games out there. So much choice. Every shooter, there's like tons. BRs, there's tons. RPGs, CRPGs, there's tons. Action RPGs, there's tons. A real-time strategy, kind of dying. Kind of almost dead. Real-time strategy, you know, I think could use a revamp. You know, we got these tower defense hybrids that are kind of real-time strategy. I guess you could call those real-time strategy games. And then MMORPGs. So it's difficult, man. And I don't envy the developers at all. I don't envy them at all. They've got a monumental task to keep players interested in 2021.
It's not as solved as they thought. Companies, once again, are taking risks. I have long believed the last year has been the start of a new golden age for the MMORPG, but what do you think? Are we seeing the start of a renaissance, or will these new games fade into obscurity like so many before them, and will we sit back into the boring status quo? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Another massive thank you to...
Well, here's what I think. I think that MMORPGs are in a state right now where, number one, COVID-19 and lockdowns are preventing a lot of innovation for a lot of companies. They haven't properly adapted, even though I think they could. They haven't properly adapted to these new restrictions that they have, right? Especially with travel. I'm not talking about just working on things, but a prime example is the servers, like silicon shortage and just how people can't buy servers. Like, you add more servers. We can't log in. Well, we can't. And I think Yoshi P even talked about this in the Final Fantasy 14 community, how they want to get more servers, but they can't. And even then, when they get more servers, they require their team to travel and set up and configure these servers. And there's travel restrictions in a lot of countries where they can't do that. And there are locations where they need to go. There's a lot of travel restrictions, and Yoshi P even said, I'm going to look out for the safety of my employees first. So it's a harsh environment, on top of the fact that players are starting to catch on, especially WoW players are starting to catch on onto the tactics of the developers. Most notably how WoW just basically took the WoW token and did what they did with the WoW token, right? And how the designs of World of Warcraft are such a departure from what they used to be, that players are fed up with it. And how the old World of Warcraft formula is preferable because they come to Final Fantasy 14, and lo and behold, the old WoW systems they used to love are in Final Fantasy 14 as the norm. So it's a really difficult environment to have a renaissance. I think a lot of companies are forced to innovate and forced to be creative in this new environment, which I think is kind of fueling a lot of what they're doing. They can't just be complacent, especially now, because it's easy to just get destroyed in this new economy, in this new world, pun intended. But realistically, I don't see it, because I don't see it. I don't see a huge renaissance. I do agree there's an uptick and upsurge, right? Because people are home more. MMORPGs are best played, you know, when you got a lot of downtime and you're at home a lot. You know, it's one of those games that can kill like 8 hours at a time easily. So now that people are working from home more, you know, I've seen some people in my community that are sitting there in the dungeon during a meeting. You know, that's easy to do, easier to do. But will they be playing 6 months from now, a year from now? That's the question. That determines the success, you know, in the world's terms of an MMO. Do you have can you retain your players for an extended amount of time? So MMOs, man, I think they're making sort of a resurgence, but I don't know. I wouldn't call it a renaissance as more as a. It's just there's more interest in MMORPGs now. People have more time, and when you have a lot of time, MMORPGs are great. When you don't have a lot of time, they're not. Those games are designed to just take away all your time. Whereas you have a shooter, a BR, you can jump in for a couple matches and leave. You can do it in a multiplayer game. You can jump in for a couple matches and leave. MMORPGs, it's harder to invest a small amount of time. Even if you do just your dailies, you're looking at least like 2 hours in some MMOs. And it's a really, really tough environment. So I agree with Josh on a lot of points, but I don't see anybody really, really taking risks. I don't know what Riot is going to do yet. I don't know what New World has got planned for the future. But based on what I see so far from Ashes of Creation, from Crowfall, from New World, all these new titles that got announced, there's not a whole lot of risks. There really isn't. It's more throwback games than anything. I don't see anything new and innovative per se. But I hope that we can come up with something. I hope that the companies can do something. I'm hoping that there can be injection of new life. I don't know how they're going to do it. Like I said, it's going to be a really, really, really hard task. And I don't envy these developers at all to retain these players who are jaded. We're jaded. We play so many games that it's hard to play a game where we haven't seen something before. So we're hard to impress. Great video by Josh. Click the link, subscribe, like his stuff. But overall, good video. It's a good topic, good discussion point. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thanks to my Patreons for helping me out. Patreon.com/Bwana. Yeah, I got a Patreon too. Y'all can contribute, help me with my videos and stuff. Thank you everybody for commenting and subscribing to my stuff. We got some new channels. We got a Bwana Clips channel. Got a 3D printing channel. Check them out in the description. I'll see y'all later. Goodbye.